Did you know that there are comics out there based on the Silent Night, Deadly Night franchise? There are, so let's talk about them. Starting off with the first 4-issue series, Silent Night, Deadly Night, which is actually an alternate sequel to the original film, going a completely different direction than Silent Night, Deadly Night 2 and 3 did. Issue number 1 begins in Eggnog, Utah, during the Christmas season, as a bitchy blonde woman is super rude to a street Santa that's collecting for charity. And not long after, the same blonde woman is followed by another man in a Santa suit who eventually catches her and slits her throat before making an escape just as he's discovered. The next day, a man named Parker Hollins arrives back in town, bumping into another street Santa and remembering back when he was a kid and a killer Santa attacked his orphanage. It turns out that Parker was one of the kids that witnessed the events in the climax of the original Silent Night, Deadly Night film, when Billy ultimately got shot. We then see that Ricky Caldwell, formerly Ricky Chapman, the little brother of the film's killer Santa, Billy, also arrives back in town with his wife and daughter. As he drives, he recalls other events that happened in the film, as well as the fact that Billy ended up surviving the shooting in the film's climax. Over at the orphanage in the current day, we see another Santa-fearing boy named Stewie, who happens to be regularly picked on by the other kids that live there. Elsewhere, Parker arrives at Ira's Toys, also from the film, and finds it being run by another friend from the orphanage named UB, which is short for Unclean Brian, a nickname he was given by the nuns back in the group home. Parker and UB catch up, and UB introduces him to a young worker named Vegas. Elsewhere, Ricky and his family arrive at the hospital in order to visit Billy in the mental ward, where Billy acts catatonic the way his grandfather did back in the film. During the visit, Billy attacks Ricky's daughter, but nurses sedate him in time to stop it. Outside of town, a random couple are going at it in their car when the crazy Santa we saw earlier shows up and axes both of them, one right in front of some Christmas carolers. We then get a couple more scenes of a young Stewie being picked on at the orphanage, including being cut and bled onto the home's Christmas tree. Back in the present again, Billy tries to hang himself in the mental ward using Christmas lights, but they break and he falls. As a result, his eyes go black and he spouts his catchphrase, "Punish!" Issue number 2 starts off with Prudence, a detective in the town of Eggnog, and a girl that Parker was asking UB about in the first issue of the series. Prudence and fellow police officer Archie are investigating the kill scene with the couple from issue number 1. Prudence also happens to be one of the kids that were in the orphanage during the finale of the original Silent Night, Deadly Night film. While they're investigating the scene, Parker shows up, and when Prue sees him, they embrace. Elsewhere, Ricky is having a tough time due to the holiday, remembering being abused by the nuns at the orphanage after Billy's murder spree, claiming they saw evil in him as well. Ricky's wife suggests that maybe he see Dr. Donald, his therapist, but Ricky implies that the doc helped him as much as he could and that there's nothing else he can do for him at this point. Ricky ends up getting angry and hears his brother's voice telling him to punish his wife, but Ricky resists and runs off screaming, "I'm not you!" We then check in back at the mental ward where old man Billy is playing dead, and as the nurses check on him, he springs to life, snapping one's neck and beating the other to a bloody pulp. Back at the current-day orphanage, we see a young Stewie silently tucking some of the other kids into bed, then kneeling in front of the Christmas tree and begging Santa not to forget about him. As he does, the bully named Spike grabs him and backhands him across the face. Unfortunately for him, though, Stewie's eyes go black and he fights back, beating Spike up and warning him not to pick on him again. Back at the mental ward, Billy kills a pill-stealing nurse, but is tased by a security guard. However, when he gets too close, Billy headbutts him and uses a defibrillator to fry his skull. Parker and Prue go to Ira's Toys to see UB, but Prue gets a call about Billy's escape, so she and Parker rush off. Billy then goes to an old age home where a curmudgeonly old man gets in his face and curses, so Billy punches right through said face in return. Back at UB's Santa-themed party at the toy store, Vegas is relegated to the office because the party is for adults only. While in there, however, he's locked in by someone. After Prue and Parker see the hospital crime scene, they discover an occult book that Billy's supposedly been studying, but Prue still believes someone is assisting him. Back outside the Santa party, 2 Santas hanging out outside are attacked by Billy, with him snapping one's neck and putting a marshmallow-laden skewer through the other's throat. Then he grabs a nearby axe and heads for the toy store's back door. Issue number 3 of Silent Night, Deadly Night starts off with a man and some children asleep on their couch while the mother showers, and suddenly a dude in a Santa suit tries to sneak in through the window. But the cops arrive and grab him and kick him, thinking he's the killer Santa. But it turns out it's the mother's drunk ex-husband trying to see the kids. But as the man is taken by the cops, we see someone in a Santa hat say, "Naughty." Once again, returning to the ongoing orphanage story, we see a young Stewie seeing his black eyes in the mirror and crying while punching the wall, not understanding what's happening to him. A nice nun comes in and gets Stewie and gathers the kids to inform them of Billy's escape. Parker and Prudence go to the local cemetery because Prue has a theory, and it turns out she's correct. Billy vandalized the Mother Superior's statue, beheading it. Then, Prue and Parker both realize at the same time that Billy's next destination will be UB's party. At a local bar and grill, the news plays loudly, notifying everyone of Billy's escape. And one of the drunks immediately recognizes and starts messing with Ricky. But Ricky fights back, injuring 2 men and stealing one of their guns, and rushing off into the night while saying he won't let his brother down again. At the party, one of the Santas is getting it on with a woman in the back room when she goes to the bathroom, allowing Billy to strike. He uses the axe to slice off the man's hands before crushing his head under his boot and snapping the topless woman's neck as soon as she returns. Suddenly, UB enters the back room, sees Billy, and smashes him immediately with a baseball bat, but to absolutely no effect. Billy uppercuts him, knocking him to the floor, and leaves the back room. Over in the toy store office, Vegas sees Billy's kills on the security cameras and rushes off to find UB so they can get help. Prue and Parker arrive at the party and see that it's packed, but they find UB right away. Not far away, a woman hits on Billy, but he instantly beheads her, sending everyone else running for their lives. But as they reach the exits, UB closes them off with metal bars, trapping everyone inside and taking Billy on himself, blasting him with a shotgun twice. After, he explains he'd always known Billy'd be back, so he prepared for it. Prue then asks him, with a gun to his head, if he'd killed the others before Billy escaped. Surprisingly, UB admits to it immediately, saying nobody should be allowed to enjoy the holiday. Vegas hears UB and storms off, upset at UB's betrayal, but a bloody Billy throws his axe as Prue pushes Vegas out of its way. Unfortunately, the axe hits some helium tanks and they all explode, killing one of the Santa partygoers in a massive explosion. Issue number 4 begins with the police, fire department, and more arriving at the burning down Ira's toys just after the explosion from the end of the 3rd issue. Prue and Parker are outside recovering from the explosion, and we see UB died in it. It turns out Vegas survived as well, but Billy's body was never found. Parker and Prue realize the last place that he would go would be the orphanage, so they take off to try and get there first. Right after that, we see that Ricky was actually just out back of the toy store right as the explosion happened, so he didn't get caught inside of it. Immediately after it, he sees Billy leaving and goes with him, but stops because one of the party Santas sees them and offers help. But Ricky immediately shoots him, saying he and his brother don't need anyone else's help. At the orphanage, Spike and one of his cronies are attacked by a black-eyed, psychotic Stewie who slashes the crony and makes Spike piss himself. The crony fights Stewie off and they manage to lock him in the next room so they can get help. Outside the orphanage, Billy sneaks up on and slashes a security guard's throat, but is shot multiple times by another guard who also gets his neck snapped when he gets close to Billy's downed body. As Prue and Parker arrive at the orphanage, they're attacked by Psycho Stewie, and as Prue tries to shoot him, she accidentally hits Parker. But as she corners and holds Stewie, Parker hits him with a chair and knocks him out, so they're free to go find Billy. In the main living room of the orphanage, the current crop of kids flee as the main Christmas tree is thrown at them by Billy, who is now transformed into a full-on Krampus creature, horns, teeth, and all. A nun tries to talk Billy down, but he shoves her out a window. Lucky for her, she lands in the snow, but unlucky for her, she sees Mother Superior's skull and bones used as the base for a grotesque snowman. Prue and Parker enter and barely dodge Billy's thrown axe before he knocks Parker aside and hoists Prue up by her neck. But she tells him the kids are innocent like he once was, and to look at himself, now a monster. Billy looks in the mirror, sees what he's become, and drops Prue. But before anyone can do anything, the owner of Ira's toys, Ira himself, walks in and uses his cane as a wizard staff, electrocuting Parker with it. crew holds a gun to Ira's head, but he melts it with his hand before explaining to everyone that he's been watching Billy his entire life, guiding him silently along the way. Just as Ira opens a portal in order to take Billy Krampus with him, Ricky suddenly shows up and shoots Ira, trying to help his brother. Billy Krampus approaches menacingly, but ultimately recognizes Billy. Ira then impales Billy on a spear, causing Billy Krampus to attack him and fight him off. Ira opens a new portal to try and kill off the kids, but Stewie attacks suddenly, and Billy shoves Ira into the portal himself, it closing behind them both. Stewie wakes up and is okay now, and everyone has a sudden, uneasy peace. Silent Night, Deadly Night, Killer Santa begins in 1984 with a man named Oscar Murphy as he hears a newscast describing the events from the original Silent Night, Deadly Night film. And when he gets back to his place, we see a bloody Santa suit in his closet that he thinks is evil. We then slide back to 1971, 13 years prior, and we see that Oscar used to steal cars and worked for a boss named Leo Esposito, who was into all kinds of crime, including theft and pimping. Oscar was dating one of Leo's working girls named Brenda when one night her direct boss gets angry and beats her up. Unfortunately for him, Oscar notices and takes matters into his own hands. Oscar takes a baseball bat to the guy and ends up killing him. As retribution, the boss Leo tells Oscar he needs to steal cars for him for free from then on. After that, Oscar gets drunk and drives, ultimately hitting a guy in a Santa suit, and rather than risk getting in trouble by helping, he drags the man into an alley and finishes him off. Then he takes the suit and puts it on himself after feeling drawn to it. Once the suit is on, he goes on a killing spree, and we see that it was Oscar that was the killer Santa all throughout the beginning of the original Silent Night, Deadly Night film, the one who started little Billy Chapman down his path of crazy. The next day, Oscar comes to and feels normal again, and decides to tell Brenda all about what happened, which causes her to eventually stop seeing him. In 1972, one day Leo asks to see Oscar, and tells him that if he kills a man that owes him money, his slate will be wiped clean and he can earn again. When he tries to, though, the gun jams and blows his cover, allowing the target a chance to fight back and knock Oscar out, leading Oscar to get caught by the police. The cops offer Oscar a deal if he turns on Leo, which he agrees to, so Leo is put in prison for 30 plus years, and Oscar is relocated to New Mexico. But when Leo finally dies in 1984, Oscar moves back to Eggnog, Utah. For years after, Oscar lives a normal life, getting married and eventually losing his wife to cancer. In 2007, a local prostitution ring is busted, and Oscar sees it's Brenda that was running it, and he realizes that she'll likely cut a deal with the law to turn him in for the Santa murders that he was never caught for, which he for some reason confided in her about. Later, as cops approach his house, Oscar once again dons the bloody Santa suit and he fights back, shooting a few cops and trying to escape, but he's shot multiple times and taken out, eventually being put into traction in the hospital. As the story ends, though, Oscar's eyes open wide. So that's it. That's all the Silent Night, Deadly Night comics that are available to you right now. Go and make sure you get your hands on them if you're a fan of the franchise. I'm certainly glad I have them because I'm a brand new fan of the franchise, and these are wildly different than what we've gotten in the film series. So go and check it out. Thank you very much for watching, and stay tuned for more comics coverage here on my channel.